All right, hello, and welcome to our weekly live. So today, I'm going to be talking about how do we become self-regulated. And when I talk about self-regulation, what I'm talking about is how do we start to live from our authentic guidance? How do we start to live from the guidance of our relative truth as well as ultimate truth rather than living from consensus reality? Rather than, hi Aisha, hello, I miss you. Um, how do we start to live from this place of learning how to navigate this life for yourself rather than living from a place of believing that being approved of is the same thing as doing it right, and that's what's going to lead to all the pleasure that we're looking for, or believing that the way to pleasure and truth and where we want to go is through rebelling from society, rebelling from our caregivers, rebelling from whatever we were trained to do, purely to just do. Hi Sam, my sister's here and that always makes me happy. um, Leading to thinking we're going to find our pleasure and we're going to find the way and we're going to find happiness through just doing the opposite of what we were trained to do, doing the opposite of what everyone else is doing, just doing the opposite. And both of these ways of living, right? Living from a sense of, I gotta be liked, I need to be approved of, I have to do what the people around me are doing, I have to fit in some way, no matter how much that contradicts what I feel, no matter how much that contradicts what, or, no matter how much pain I'm in trying to do that, versus I'm in a lot of pain. It seems like if I try and follow what everyone else is doing, that makes me even more in pain. So it must just be that I should do the opposite, that I should do the other thing. Remembering that that's our conditioning. Okay, so based on how we were raised as children, we're either going to be people pleasers or we're going to be rebellers. And these are two sides of the same, we're not working from sovereignty, we're not working from self-regulation, we're not working from an adult perspective, we're working from the child perspective. Because remember, and we talk about this a lot, but I'm going to say it again, in our infancy, 0 to 7 especially, when we were being programmed for this is how life works, one of the main programs that were written into all of our nervous systems was caregivers are source of everything. I cannot get my needs met, meaning when I am in pain, I cannot get out of pain. And when I am seeking pleasure, I cannot get pleasure unless and until my caregivers cooperate in some way. So understanding that that is a fundamental, why are you a people pleaser? Right? Like, why do you care so much what people think about you? Why is it so hard for you to do what you want to do if that's going to lead to people around you being disappointed? Because it's wired into your nervous system that when you're disapproved of, provision goes away, security goes away. What you need to feel safe, what you need to live goes away. Because if parents disagree with you, parents disapprove of you, they take away love, they take away nourishment, they take away support, they withdraw emotionally. And to your little nervous system, as a child, that is equivalent to death because you needed them. All right, so we all have to recognize this in ourselves, that we have right now nervous systems that are wired that rejection equals death. And we have to do whatever it takes to not be rejected, no matter how painful that is, no matter how scary that is, no matter how against our truth that is. because we emotionally and physically learned in our infancy and our childhood that to be disapproved of is to have your caretakers withdraw. Your caretakers are the source of everything. If they withdraw, you're fucked. So it doesn't matter what you want to do. It doesn't matter what's right for you. You need to win back their approval. Okay, so that's the people pleasers. It's still wired into your nervous system that you might be one of these people who just was never able to fit in, was never able to actually shut yourself down, was never able to do the normal path. You've been spiritual, you've been sensitive, you've been artistic, you've been on your own path in some way for your entire life. So you've never really been able to do it. You've never been able to like fit in. But you've spent your entire life hating yourself because of that. You've spent your entire life in deep fear because of that. You've spent your entire life believing there was something wrong with you, that you couldn't deal with what was going on, that you couldn't be okay, that you couldn't fit in, that you couldn't do what you were supposed to do. That no matter how hard you tried, you either failed at it or you sabotage yourself in some way, or you need some coping mechanism. You're constantly doing something to ease the pain of what you think you have to do in this life. And you're constantly upset with yourself that you see who you could be and you see what you could do and you see your potential, and you just can't ever actually make yourself get there. You can't make yourself go there. It's not you. It's not your intellect. It's not that there's something missing in you. It's your nervous system is taking over and saying, no, we are not going to go this other way. We're not going to let you like this part of yourself. We're not going to let you embrace this because your nervous system still thinks you're a child. It has not caught up to the fact that you're an adult now who can be rejected and still get your needs met. And in fact, you might be an adult who still believes in your cognitive mind that if you're rejected by everyone and everyone rejects you, you will die. Right? So that's programmed so deep into your nervous system. We need to have so much compassion for ourselves because none of us are choosing that. And so many of us are beating ourselves up so much that we know better, that we think we should be doing better, that we know what we want to do and we just can't do it. And why are we so caught in these relationships that are abusive? And why are we so addicted to what people think about us? And why do we keep falling back to these coping and self-sabotaging things when we try to live our spiritual life and we try to do what we want to do? It feels like our nervous systems get hijacked and we get into coping mechanisms. Or when we're doing really good, doing what we should be doing, as in what we've been conditioned we're supposed to be doing, and we're getting along doing that, but then we sabotage ourselves, or we're addicted to things, or we don't know how to regulate our emotions. Like all of these things are coming up and we're just thinking, what is wrong with me? And nothing is wrong with you. Your nervous system right now is programmed that if you get rejected, you're going to die. That is what's happening. So every single time it feels you doing something that got you rejected, you not doing something that was required of you, all of these programs you're probably not even aware of. Okay, and that's the other thing. For most of us, our conditioning, we're fish in water. It's this close to our face, we can't see it. We don't think we're conditioned. We think that the way that we perceive the world and the things that we think are right and the things that we think are wrong and the things we think are good and the things we reject in ourselves and the things we're striving towards, we think that's all reality without ever questioning that maybe that's conditioning. Okay? So that's the first side. And then the rebellers. The rebellers simply learned that when I follow my caretaker's guidance, it's worse for me. So it was either you never got that approval, you never got the validation, it didn't matter how hard you tried, you tried and you tried and you tried, and it was just never good enough. You were never validated. It was always a new boundary, a new baseline. Or you learned that I'm doing what my caregivers are asking of me, and it's not giving me the pleasure reward. When I follow my caretakers, it is actually worse. I get pain because they don't actually reward me with love or with acceptance or with approval or with validation. And all I feel is the pain of not getting my need met. So then we become a rebeller, right? Someone who just says, okay, well, then I'm just going to take whatever authority is telling me and do the opposite. Because I learned in my nervous system early on that following authority equals pain. So, but again, it's still a child version of problem solving to just say, okay, so then whatever society says or culture says or whatever my caregivers told me to do, I have to throw it all out because the only safety is in rebelling from that. You see? So we learned early on that if our caregivers and if society didn't reward us for following the rules, if we didn't then get our needs met, if we didn't get validated, if we didn't get loved, so especially if we had caretakers who were really, really busy or really, really self-focused or narcissistic in some way or sabotaging to us in some way, we would have learned that even when we do what they want us to do, we don't get the reward. Even when we follow the guidance and we live up to it, there's still pain. And it's pain. And I'm already in pain, and then there's now this double pain. So that's when I'm saying we're going to learn that we can't trust authority, and anything authority says, we're going to have that nervous system response of do the opposite. Just do the opposite, because whatever they're saying is definitely wrong. All right? And both of these ways of living, like I say, are childlike ways of dealing with a child problem. Because our child problem was, I am stuck in this household. I am dependent upon these people. There was nothing we could do as children, right? That helpless feeling, that helplessness feeling, that victimized feeling, that feeling of, oh my God, they are controlling me and there's nothing I can do about it. That is rooted in our childhoods. All of us have that, and that comes from childhood wounds, where we were dependent upon caregivers that weren't able to actually care for us, that weren't able to meet our needs, that were antagonistic to our needs, that were antagonistic to our true expression, that all of these things. So that, again, is a nervous system trauma of I depend upon these people. And when I follow them, maybe I get love, maybe I get acceptance, maybe I get provision, but there's still pain because I'm not following my truth. So that's a bunch of cognitive dissonance. That's trauma, right? It sort of gives me survival, approval, love, which is something better than just being purely in pain. But there's still pain because I'm not being my real self. I'm not allowed to express my true self. I'm getting good at following the rules. I'm getting good at figuring out what I'm supposed to be doing. But anytime my real self comes up in a way that got me rejected, I'm going to smash it down. I'm going to hate it. I'm going to not go there. And that equals pain. So now we have consensus reality pleasure of getting accepted and getting our needs met even when we deny ourselves. That contradicts true reality, pain, and pleasure of us having to deny our truth, which ultimately, when we're adults, okay, this is part of the self-regulation. When we're adults, we start to understand that when we actually follow our truth, this is the best thing for our survival. That those, especially in these times, who are following their own guidance, meaning people who are tapping into real reality, not consensus reality, not what everyone says we should be doing, not shoulds, but truly tapping into feeling. How does this feel? We're going to start to see these people are being drawn towards all the things that actually enable them to survive better. So this self-regulation is not an abandonment of what it's going to take to survive. It's a stepping out of consensus reality where they have some things right and they have some things wrong. And it's a mixed bag, and we are at the whim of what consensus has decided is reality. And like I said, so then we benefit from the things they get right, and we suffer from the things they get wrong. That is what living in consensus reality is. When we live in people pleasing, when we live in I'm gonna hate myself for all the things that get me rejected or got me rejected, instead of learning to embrace these parts of myself and what are they teaching me and what are they guiding me towards, like, and letting them mature. Remember, the parts of ourselves that we have rejected, the parts of ourselves that are in shadow, are not mature. They're not going to be, when we first contact them and start getting their messages and start listening to them, you should build a property off grid. It's going to be chaos in there. It's going to be anger and sadness and fear and existential crisis, because it's going to be those parts of you that are starting to wake up to the fact that following guidance isn't safe. And that's going to be a huge existential crisis. Okay? A big part of the awakening path is the existential crisis that my caregivers didn't know what was right, that my culture didn't have the right answers, that my religion didn't have the right answers, that my educational institution didn't have all the answers, that getting out of pain isn't as simple as just following these people, right? That childlike state of, I don't know what to do, I'm in pain, I'm suffering, it's someone else's job to fix or save me because I don't have the tools to do it myself. And then we got learning traumas that made it so that we now are afraid to learn and afraid to make mistakes and afraid to admit we don't know, which is required for figuring out what is actually going to be pleasurable in real life, is required for self-regulation, right? We have all these stories on top of that, like we were talking about in the last video, in the sovereignty video. And so these first phases of waking up are all trauma, right? And then the other side of it, the rebellers, they're going to recognize that life is not so black and white, that it's not as simple as just do the opposite of what everyone else is doing. It's not as simple as they just have everything wrong. And if I just do the opposite, I will find pleasure. That if I just do the opposite, I'm right. That all I have to do is look to what they're doing and then do the opposite and I'll be fine, right? It's the same childhood logic. The childhood logic that says, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know what the answers are, I'm in pain. If I do what everyone tells me to do, if I'm pleasing, if I get validation, if I get approval, I will be loved and I will be cared for. Or, I'm in pain, I don't know what to do, so just look to what society says to do, look to what my caregivers told me to do, and just do the opposite. It's these two childlike ways of interacting with reality. It's non-self-regulation. It's working from the authorities are still the authority. And it's either do what they say and that will save me, or do the opposite of what they say, and that it's as simple as that. So what we need to start to recognize with self-regulation is, first and foremost, life is more complicated and not simple. It's more complicated than we want it to be. It's more complicated than we understand right now. When we're in pain, that means the rules that we're living by are too simple. We need to learn something more complex about reality. Moving from pain to pleasure is a continual path of becoming more complex, more awake to actually works, more encompassing all the shades of gray that exist in reality, and learning how to understand how they fit in as a whole. Because this is the big thing, right? All of us who are searching for the black and white, for the right answer, so the right diet, the right way to eat, the right way to be in a relationship, the right job, the right spiritual path, the right way to meditate, the right way to journal, the right way to process, the right way to feel, the right way to not feel. We're not seeing that it is that very mindset. What's the right answer that's going to get me out of my pain? That is what needs to be transcended. There is no answer. to the pain that we're in. When we are lost, when we are confused, when we don't know what to do, the first thing that's going to happen is your nervous system is going to kick in to ask you to do what you've always done. So it's going to ask you to people please. It's going to ask you to reject and deny and get rid of these parts of yourself. So you're going to go into shame. You're going to go into self-help. You're going to go into people pleasing. You're going to go into following patterns that you might not even know are patterns. Doing what you saw your caregivers do. Doing what you've always done. You're going to lash out. You're going to yell at someone. You're going to scapegoat. You're going to do all these things that you've always done. Your nervous system, this is what you have always done when you didn't know, when you were in pain, when you were suffering. And because you're still alive, to your nervous system, this means the strategy worked. This is what you had to do. It's programmed into your nervous system that when I feel lost, when I feel scared, when I feel pain, when I don't know, I do this thing, I survive, and therefore it was the right thing to do. It was the life-saving thing. So the next time you're in that fear, and it's the same thing with the rebellion, okay, same thing, different side of the same coin. When you're scared, when you're lost, when you're hurting, when you're confused, your nervous system says rebel, sabotage it, do the opposite, stay up all night and jump on your bed and eating Cocoa Puffs, rebel. Because again, to your nervous system, when you were in pain, when you didn't know what to do, when you were unsure, you rebelled, you survived, and then your nervous system said, that's what it was, that saved us. So now forever and ever forward, when your nervous system feels that fear, when you're in pain, whether you understand why you're in pain or not, doesn't matter. When you feel pain, when you feel unsure, when you don't know what to do next, when life is insecure, which it is a lot, your nervous system gets triggered. Do what you've always done. And then you wonder why you keep doing these patterns. Because you're in fear. When you're in fear, you do what you've always done. This is what you've always done. It's your nervous system saying, this is how we survived. I'm not going to let you do something different. We're not going to consider an alternative option. And if you do start considering alternative options, I'm going to tell you all the reasons why that's ridiculous. I'm going to be in your head being like, no, you'll be hated. They're going to reject you. You cannot do that. Look at all the reasons. Look at all the examples of how this happened in the past. All your scary stories. I'm going to be a bag lady. I'm going to be poor. I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to lose my spouse. I'm going to get fat. I'm going to... All those fear stories are going to come up as a way of motivating you to do what you've always done. Don't question the system. We're in fear. This is not a good time. That's what your nervous system is programmed. Okay? Or rebel. Don't listen to them. Whatever they say, just do the opposite. Because that's how you've always survived. That's what you've always done, and that's how you survived. So your nervous system gets activated, and you get stuck doing what you've always done. Because that's how your nervous system works. So how do we move into self-regulation? First things first, again, as always, with everything that I teach, we start with awareness. We have to start to develop some awareness practices. And being aware of yourself in the moment, when you're scared, when you're triggered, when you're doing these things. Start awareness your day. When you're triggered, when you are triggered, it doesn't matter. You need to make these practices a daily habit. Because in order to become aware of things that you need to become aware of, the programming, the stuff that's right here, your patterns, the stuff that is so automatic to your nervous system, it takes over before your brain can know anything about what you're doing. In order to become aware of those things enough to be able to do something about them, you first have to become good at being aware. And most of us are not. Okay? Most of us have lived lives where we have been trained not to be aware. Life is so overstimulating. We're constantly bombarded with TV commercials and music and this app and that app and this bell and this thing that this person needs and this thing that that person needs, and you should be doing this and you should be doing that, and I'm hungry and I'm discontent and I'm this. Life is go, go, go from the minute you wake up to the minute you go to bed. We're distracted. And we're addicted to that distraction. We're addicted to that stimulation. So slowing down, building into your day 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes where you're noticing how you feel and you're not reacting. It's going to be the hardest thing you've ever done, right? Because we live in a world that's filled with, oh, you don't feel good? Here's a gabillion things you can do about that, right? Even in the spiritual world, it's complicated. Even in the spiritual communities, okay, we'll go do a cacao ceremony, go smoke some ayahuasca, or drink ayahuasca, go on plant medicine, go get a shaman, go talk to this person, go talk to that person, go do this specific meditation, go do this yoga, go. Okay, what about just sit and feel, right? We can use everything in this world as a distraction. And when we're using everything as a distraction, it's impossible to become aware. And when we're not aware, we can't change stuff. We can't deal with things that we're not seeing. We can't deal with things that we're not aware of. And so again, understanding this, what is the answer to me getting happy? What is the answer to self-regulation? There is no answer. It's a path. It's a journey. It's many different answers. It's steps. There is no, here's how you get self-regulated. It's a journey. So even just that, accepting that, is a huge step in maturation. That we're no longer looking for it. We're not looking for the answer. We're not looking for the hack, the trick, the thing. We're saying, okay, this is going to be a process. And it's going to be many different things. And all of them are going to be a part of the learning. And I'm willing to embrace the learning path. In order to become self-regulated, it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in a year. It's probably not going to happen in several years. It's going to be incremental movement. Okay, so starting with, you just get committed to awareness practices being a part of your life now. Right? So don't do it so that I can be self-regulated. You start to just do it for the sake of doing it. Like, this is what you do now. It's like drinking water. You're not like, I'm going to drink water for the next 30 days and see what happens. If you want to be healthy, you have to drink water every day. And it's just what you do now. You don't do a 30-day sleep challenge, and then we'll see. You sleep every night. And you feel it when you don't. So it's one of these things of like, how can you make it like brushing your teeth? You're not going to do a 30-day brushing your teeth challenge. No one's doing that. Why? Because we all brush our teeth every day. Because we know it's just a thing we do. If we don't want our teeth to fall apart, we have to do oral hygiene. So it's like this. Self-regulation is not a destination. It's something we're going to be continually building for the rest of our lives. So awareness practices is just something you do now. Like, you gotta start to own it as a part of your way of being. That I'm practicing being more aware all the time. Like a doctor, they always say they're practicing medicine. They practice medicine until the day they stop doing medicine. No one ever says you're a doctor. They say from the minute they start practicing to the minute they end their career that they are practicing medicine. Because there's always something to learn. There's always something deeper. There's always something wider. So with awareness. It really is one of these things that it's like, do you want this in your life? And do you want to be this kind of person? Because a person who's really on this path of self-regulation, of learning from real reality, is constantly challenging their capacity to be aware, constantly making it wider, deeper, right? I've been on this path my whole life, really, and I still practice every day, and I will practice until the day I die, because there is no getting it and now you got it. Okay? So practice, awareness, whatever that means for you. Sit and stare out the window for 5 minutes. Sit and be in your body. During your movement practice, focus on your breath. Notice your thoughts. The point is to develop the capacity to observe yourself, so that eventually you can start to observe your patterns. So that's step 2, is you start to observe your patterns. You start to watch yourself. Okay, I'm having this reaction over and over again. I'm doing this coping mechanism. I'm doing this self-sabotage. I'm doing this scapegoat. I'm doing this form of rebellion, right? And I'm labeling it as lazy. I'm labeling myself as not good enough. I'm labeling myself as all these stories. Okay, so now I'm noticing my patterns. And then I'm going to start to notice the stories that are attached to those patterns. This is already 3 layers deep. So we start with, can I just notice my experience? My breath, my body, my movement, how I'm feeling. Just start with that. And then eventually, that leads you to being able to observe your own patterns. So that's step 2. You start observing your own patterns. Okay, this isn't a one-off, right? Because this is where most of us start. Is we think, yeah, I ate, but it was different this time. I went on a diet, the diet was different. I yelled at my partner, but it was because of this. It was because of this. It was because of this. And we all think we're doing different things. We all think it's because of different stuff. It's a different thing every time. We need to get on to ourselves that it's not a different thing every time. We're repeating patterns. It looks like a different thing. It looks like we're doing something different. We always think, well, the circumstances were slightly different, and therefore it's a different thing, and we need to get on to ourselves that we're repeating patterns. So we start to look at, is this really different? Or is this what I always do? Is this really different? Or is this what I always do? Right? I was triggered in a different way, slightly, but my reaction is pretty much the same as it always is. I always go to hating this part of myself. I always go to this coping mechanism. I always go to this scapegoat. I always quit the job. I always, what are we always doing? Right? And then we can look and say, well, yeah, I'm being triggered by all these different things, but my reaction is the same. So we're becoming aware of our own patterns. Third thing, what's the story behind the pattern? So what's the story you tell yourself about the pattern? What are you making it mean about you? What are you making it mean about life? What are you telling yourself about this? What you should and shouldn't? Are you justifying? Are you defending yourself? Are you hating yourself? All of this. And you're going to start to notice that's all consensus reality. The stories we tell about our patterns are all consensus reality. Because the only true story about all of your patterns is, this is how I think I'm going to get out of pain. This is how I think I'm going to get out of pain. This is how I think I'm going to get pleasure. This is how I think I'm going to solve my problem. I am in pain. There's something I want that I'm not getting. There's something I'm getting I don't want. This is my solution. That's why I do this. And until we can have that level of compassion for ourselves, that no matter how destructive our pattern looks, No matter how much we look at this is stupid. Of course this isn't going to work. Look at my stupid pattern. Look how dumb I am. Why do I keep doing this? What's wrong with me? We're not seeing it. That's not truth. And we all think we're going to shame ourselves out of our bad habits. Every single one of us believes, yeah, but my thing is really terrible. Right? I can't have compassion for this. This is clearly nonsensical. I'm just sabotaging myself. I'm just lazy. What's wrong? Like, it's just me. I'm just stupid. I just need to stop this. Just tell me what to do to stop this, because this isn't a deeper issue. This is just me not doing what I need to do for myself. No, it's not. It's always what your nervous system thinks you need to do when you're in a state of fear. And so if you're acting in these ways, even that awareness, I'm acting in these ways, so I must be in a state of fear. Most of us don't even notice that we're in a state of fear because it's normal. We're in a state all the time. Our nervous systems are being activated without us even being aware of it because it's just our normal. So we're acting out our trauma response. We're rebelling and we're people pleasing. And we don't even know why we're doing it because we're like, I'm fine. I feel fine. Nothing happened. But that's not really what's going on in your nervous system. In real reality, you feel threatened, otherwise you wouldn't be doing this. So that's why we have to start to have this deep level of, okay, this is what I thought it was, but it's not true. And then we go into that existential crisis, like I said, that we don't have the answers. That this is why we're doing this. We're in pain and we don't know what to do. We're following what everyone else is doing because that's the best we know right now. We don't feel comfortable doing something different. As much as we might think we've heard spiritual people or other people say these things, when it really comes down to it, we're too afraid. Our nervous systems are too triggered. We're in the unknown, we're feeling alone, we're feeling scared, and we just want to do what we've always done. We're feeling alone, we don't know, we're in pain, we're just going to rebel. Because that makes us feel powerful. That makes us feel safe. That makes us feel like we're in control. Because we probably learned that pain comes from the outside, right? That it is authority figures that hurt us. And so to rebel, again, we're going to think that must be the way out of pain. Because if they're the source of the pain, if I just undo what they're not telling me to do, or assert my dominance by rebelling, I'm winning. Right? So we got to start to notice our patterns. Notice that we're in lockdown, in trauma response. I'm doing what I've always done because I'm scared right now. I'm feeling threatened right now. And then you're going to start to become aware of what that is. Is there a part of you that got really rejected that's starting to come up? An emotion, a feeling, a trait, something you're wanting to do, express, and be that you're now shutting down? It's starting to bubble up, or it did bubble up, and now you're trying to save yourself by hating yourself, by rejecting yourself, by going into your self-sabotage so that you'll stop doing that. Right? We got to look at this. What triggered you? What triggered you into this trauma? And then how can we start to have that loving compassion for these parts of self that are traumatized? Right? We got to start to look at these parts as so sweet and so innocent, no matter how completely destructive they look on the surface, no matter how much we hate them and the results that we're getting. And the adult part of us being like, what the fuck? Stop it. This isn't working. There's something wrong with you. Obviously, this isn't going to do it. Just do the better thing. I know what the better thing is. Why can't I do it? Because your nervous system won't let you. Because it's scared, traumatized child nervous system. And it's driving the ship. Okay? So that is the main foundations is we start to become aware. We start to become aware of our patterns. We become aware of our stories. We start to get curious about what triggered us. And we start to have compassion for these parts of self that are so scared and don't know what to do. They're lost, right? That what triggered me is always going to be, I came up against something I didn't know what to do. I came up against a pain I don't actually know why it's there or how to solve it. I don't know what to do. I'm scared. I'm looking for a path. I'm looking for a solution. I'm looking for an answer because I'm scared and I don't know what to do. So I'm either relying on my conditioning or rebelling from what everyone else is doing. Because that's what I do when I don't know what to do. Right? And so I want to start to talk about what it looks like when we're actually self-regulating. Oh, sorry, one second. So when we're actually self-regulating, what it's going to look like is that we're starting to connect with our own feelings, with our own sense of self, and walking ourselves through the trauma, first things first, of not reacting and responding how we used to react and respond. So again, right now in your nervous system, the people pleasing, the coping, the scapegoating, the rebelling, it's what you always do when you're scared. And again, to your nervous system, this is what's saving your life. So every time you're triggered and then you act how you always acted, you're reinforcing to your nervous system that that's what saved your life. Because remember, to your nervous system, your boss yelling at you, it doesn't know that you can survive that. Not yet. It really thinks you're going to die if you don't do your behavior that you've always done. Okay? Your nervous system literally thinks this is it. It doesn't realize you could get another job. That you're probably not even going to get fired. That there's money in your bank account. That you're an adult. That all of these things. To your nervous system, when you're in a state of fear, this is it. To your nervous system, this is it. If this goes wrong, you die. Okay, so we need to have compassion for that. Our cognitive minds understand we're not going to die. Your body has no idea. So this is why when you get into these fear states and you start to say, okay, I'm not going to act on my behavior, the anxiety and the discomfort and the fear and the shame and the stories and the voices and the oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, the alarm bells are going to be 10 out of 10. Because to your body, you are about to commit suicide. So when we get to phase 6, so after all these other ones, practicing awareness, awareness of your patterns, awareness of the stories, where did this come from, right? What is this actually? Where's the trigger? What parts of myself are being triggered? What am I not allowed to do? What am I saying? Where is this coming from? We start to really look at this. Phase 6 is, okay, I'm feeling that feeling. I want to people please. I want to scapegoat. I want to sabotage. I want to rebel. I want to do that thing. And watching yourself not react. Letting yourself go through it without doing what you usually do. Again, this is like super advanced, not easy. Probably going to take 6 years of practice before you get here. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. This is like self-regulation PhD, where you can start to watch yourself get triggered. And you can watch yourself go through it without responding how you usually do. So I'll give you an example. In my childhood, it was not okay to be a child. Being silly meant I was going to get in trouble. I was expected to be a little adult. So childlike behavior got me really, really, really shamed, and it got me in trouble, like big time. Rejected by my caregivers. So programmed into my nervous system. Acting like a child means death. Okay? So then my husband acts silly. He gets a little bit space cadet sometimes and just goes totally off the rails in silly, making noises, jumping around the house. My nervous system looks at that and is like, stop. You must stop. You have to stop. If you don't stop, we're going to die. Because I get triggered in two ways. Number one, I'm the only adult in the house. And if I'm the only adult in the house, life is way too hard. I need an adult partner because life is scary and I can't do this by myself. And if you're acting like a child, I'm going to die. And second thing, if you're acting like a child, we're going to die because you are now a part of me. And mom is going to reject us and we're going to die. I love you and I don't want you to get killed, so stop acting like that. I'm trying to protect him. You see? So every time he's acted like a child for years, he is awesome. My husband is the best. I crack down. Stop it. That's enough. Don't be crazy. You're going to break something. Blip, 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 blip. Right? Or I would feel myself wanting to do that. And then I'd be like, man, you're such a bitch. Why can't he have fun? Why can't he be like this? What's wrong with me? Stop it. You just need to relax. Why can't you relax? What's wrong with you? Relax, relax. Just have fun. So those were my two nervous system responses. Shame myself. Stop it. So what I've been practicing is watching him do that, watching myself completely freak out. My nervous system goes like, right? I let it happen. I let it happen. I have compassion for myself. So rather than getting mad at myself, rather than telling myself I should be able to have fun with him and what's wrong with me and all these things, I say, okay, I hear you. I totally validate this. This was really scary for you. This is scary for you for very legitimate reasons. It's okay. I hear you. Yes, that happened for a reason. I know your pattern now. I see why it happened. I've done the first 5 phases. I'm aware of myself. I'm aware of my traumas. I'm aware of how I was conditioned I will die if this is how it is. And it's not my fault. And my inner child just needs, okay, I'm here with you. If we get yelled at, I'm going to love you. I can provide for you. If we're alone and we're the only adult, you can figure it out. I tell my inner child what they need to hear so they know that I'm on their side. That adult version of me is here, right? I don't let myself go completely into child view. I can maintain the observer self because I practice the awareness so much that I can watch this happen and I can be 2 parts of myself at once, right? So this higher part of me talks to the child part and says, okay, I hear you. I totally get it. Tell me all your fears. What's going to happen if he's silly? And she flips out and tells me all of her fears. So I'll tell you in a sec. And I tell her everything she needs to hear. I'm going to protect you. If we get yelled at, if something happens, I'm not going to let anything bad happen to you. You're not a child anymore. We're not in mom's house anymore. Really, look at real reality. We're okay. I hear what you're saying. Thank you for trying to protect me, but we're okay. I'm going to protect you. You don't have to protect me anymore because it's not mom's house. Okay, so that's the first step. Second step is I let him do his thing. Even if I can't get silly with him in the moment, I don't stop him. I don't rebuke him. I don't interject. And as much as like, I let him do it. Because the gift here is this. When we get through it, right? We get through it. We have the silly time. Maybe I can join him. That definitely happens. When my inner child feels safe enough, and I'm like, oh, okay, we're okay. No one's here. But mostly it's been letting myself get through it. And then seeing, like proving to my nervous system, okay, look, I didn't do what I usually do. I didn't do the life-saving technique. And I lived. That is how we retrain the nervous system. Right? We don't do what we usually do. And we let our nervous system see, I didn't do what we usually did. I didn't die. Because again, every other time I reacted by beating myself up or stopping him. Even if I went away and said, okay, it's okay though. We can be silly. We can do these things. We're free. All of that. My nervous system is like, no, because you did the life-saving technique. So it reinforced it. You see what I'm saying here? It's in the being able to not do our habits and see ourselves through that. So this is why this is so hard. Because in order to actually retrain the nervous system, we have to go through that existential dread and fear that's going to say to us, no, you have to do your thing. If you don't do it, we're going to die. And we have to say, okay, let's see if we die. Let's see if we die. I'm going to love you even if you die. If this really is the thing that's going to kill us, let's just see. And when you get through to the other side and you see we were silly and we didn't die, as much as my logic can understand that, my body does not until I don't do my life-saving technique and I live out the new way and see that I live. That's when my nervous system starts to say, oh, okay, maybe safe, silliness is safe. That is how my body is learning, my self. But you have to let yourself go through that really intense, okay, I feel like I'm going to die. I feel like if I don't do this thing, I'm totally going to die. Right? And it started with way back. I'm not going to mess with my diet right now. That's all I want to do. Years ago, that was my coping mechanism. And that was how I survived trauma. Was when things were crazy in my life, I could crack down on my body, and that was the thing I can control. And so learning to be in the chaos without turning it on my body, it always felt like I was going to die at first. But then I learned over time by not making it about my body that first, it was safe to not make it about my body. And second, that helped me to start to discover the things that were actually going wrong in my life that I could take control over. I started to see, okay, well, I'm not a child, and really what I got triggered by was someone being mean to me. And that made me feel like I'm not good enough, and so I have to get thinner, obviously. Or this personality trait that I have no control over it, but I can control my body. And by not doing that, not engaging in the behavior, I learned that I don't die, and I learned that there are other options. So this is why this is so advanced. We have to get good at seeing ourselves through that discomfort, that existential fear and dread that we're going to die, and get through it anyways, to prove to our nervous systems we didn't die. So much more awareness and so much more that we can go into on the other side of that. So in my next video, I want to talk about living by your values, because that's the other part of self-regulation. It's starting to decide for yourself what your guiding principles of life are. Because this is part of the reason we scapegoat, and part of the reason we people please, and part of the reason we are sheeple, right? Is because we are looking for some guiding principle for when we don't know what to do. When we're scared, we always go back to those things. We always go back to those things. We always have done. To the conspiracy theories, to the distrusting of everything. I'm just going to follow instructions. I'm just going to hate myself. I'm just going to whatever. Because right now, that's our guiding principle. That's how we know what to do when we don't know what to do. So learning how to set a set of principles for yourself, where you can, because it's not about not having a guiding set of principles. So Todd just said, I'm sorry, Allie, you've had trauma. I was listening to Eckhart all day, and it reminded me that throughout all those traumas, you were loved by God. Yes, absolutely, 100%. This is exactly the truth, right? That I had a lot of trauma, but that's why I know what I know, because I've seen myself through it. Like, I'm not one of those teachers that learned what I'm telling you other teachers. I learned this from myself. And I'm so glad I went through all my trauma, because had I not, I wouldn't know this. And it's through all the pain and the suffering and all this that I've been through, the processing, that I can hand this over. So I wouldn't trade it for a second, right? And ultimately speaking, like I say, we're all traumatized. And I know what that's like. And I know that freedom is possible. But it's going through these hard existential crises that get us there. So I also got to thank you for this and for your openness. Can't stay, but wonderful. And yeah, 6 years feels like quite a quick fix, LOL. It can take so long, right? Anyways, yes, right? Nervous systems. We have to work with our nervous systems. And then, like I say, in the next video, I want to talk about values and starting to own what we value as our true selves versus what we're being conditioned to value and what we think we should do. Because so many of us are living these lives where we're not committed to what we really value and what is true for us. And we're not fully committed to consensus reality either. We're just neither. We feel bad when we're doing what consensus reality tells us to do because we have true pain and pleasure. We feel bad when we're doing what we want to be doing because consensus reality is still part of our conditioning. And learning how to love ourselves into a place of safety to actually choose what is right. Learning to love ourselves where we can say, okay, I am forego. I'm going to sacrifice these values for these values. I'm going to make a clear adult choice that in life, there are always going to be pluses and minuses for everything we do. And most of the time, we can't actually make safe choices from logic. Because when we use logic to make our decisions, it's always going to be pretty much neutral on both sides. Because everything in life is a risk and everything in life is an unknown. So how do we make choices? How do we move forward? We have to have a guiding set of values. We have to have a guiding set of principles. And we can either outsource that to society, to our parents, to religion, to the government, to whatever. And that's what we're doing because we're constantly running into the unknown. We're constantly running into what we don't know. We're constantly running into a choice that we've never had to make before, into a destiny that is different than we've ever experienced before. So how do we make these choices? Logic and reason usually doesn't work because we can come up with a reason for why each choice will work. So then we always default to, okay, we're just going to go on the gut. And that's either outsourced or we can start to insource. And I want to teach you how to insource your guiding principles. So that's what we're going to talk about in the next video. Okay, but I hope awareness, so developing awareness practices, so you can become aware of your patterns, so that you can start to question the stories behind your pattern, so you can start to see the innocent child that's behind that, and start to love that, and then eventually witnessing yourself and not acting. Okay, so I love you. You're amazing. I'll see you live. Until then, have a fabulous week. Mwah.